If you're writing the ICAN Advanced Auditing and Assurance Dismay, stop what you're doing and watch this video. The first time I wrote this paper, I failed. Not because I didn't read, but because I didn't know what I was doing. The second time, I passed. In this video, I'm going to break down the lessons I learned, the mistakes I made, the systems I used, and the exam strategy that helped me cross to the finish line. Let's get into it. Let me be honest with you about something. I'm a calculation person, right? Give me taxation, give me strategic business reporting, give me SFM, I'll be comfortable with it. But when it came to auditing was a different beast entirely. The first thing that hit me about auditing was the volume. The book wasn't necessarily the thickest books in ICAN. Like, there were books that were more than it, but every single word tied with every single page mattered because there was no calculation to break it up. So it was just theory after theory, standard after standard. And here's the thing about auditing. It's not like every other theoretical course that once you read and understand, you'll be able to write it in your own words. Auditing is way more like law. There are certain things that you require to use the specific terminologies, the specific standards, the ISAs, the international standard on auditing. There are questions that you'll be required to answer. You have to quote those standards exactly how it is. So it is not like any other written course that's from just reading and understanding you'll be able to answer. There was a lot of cramming that would be needed. So in auditing, if you use the wrong word in the wrong context, it can cost you some marks. Even in the sense of when, let's say for example, you're asked to explain the 5 elements of an engagement. If you don't know the exact words, criteria, responsible party, evidence, subject matter, tri-party relationship, let's say you have an understanding and you decide to use another words that still means those words, you probably not get your mark because you're supposed to state those words as they are. You can't really freestyle auditing. No, can you really paraphrase some things? There are some things that you need to write as it is. So this is what made auditing very complicated for me. Even some questions where they're asking you regarding some standards, you'll be required to quote the standards, SISS standard citation, whether it is ISA 200, 250, 315. If that question requires it, you need to quote it. And then if you mistakenly quote a different standards when you're trying to explain something, for example, let's say you're trying to talk about ISA 200 and then you mistakenly quote ISA 250 or 205 as the standard as what you're explaining. Even if what you're explaining is correct, because of you wrote this wrong standard, the examiner can penalize you for that. I didn't know all these things the first time I wrote auditing and I failed. On top of that, because I found this subject boring, I knew I was not a reading person, yet I did not read as seriously I should have. I didn't even practice questions as seriously as I should have, and I paid the price. But the second time was completely different, and here is what changed. When I was reading the second time, I made the decision early. I knew that if I sat and read this book front to back multiple times, like many people do, I would fall asleep, I would get bored, and I wouldn't retain anything. So I had to find a smarter way, and this is the 4-step system I used. Number 1, watch YouTube lectures. So if you're new to this channel, I have an episode in this ICAN Starter Pack series where I talked about the best YouTube channels to use for the different subjects in ICAN. So for Advanced Auditing and Assurance, I suggested the equity professionals because they helped me during my study for ICAN. So my first step being watch YouTube lectures, I used the equity professionals YouTube channel. They're basically like a tutorial center, but they have online lectures and offline lectures. So they usually post their online lectures on YouTube. So if you go to their page, they have a playlist for each of the courses for each diet. So if you're writing in mid-diet, if you go to their page, you'll probably see Advanced Auditing playlist for mid-diets with all the videos of all the classes they've had, right? And then if you're waiting to write in November, during that period towards the November diet, they'll probably start uploading again for the next diet. So they were very helpful to me. The facilitators, they were very good. And then after each lectures, the lecturers or the teachers always practice questions that had to do with the topic that they just taught. This made it easier for me to know the kind of questions to expect from that topic that I just learned. Now, this isn't a paid partnership. I'm just recommending them because they genuinely helped me pass and I'm grateful to them. Here's how to use this YouTube video. So you're going to treat these YouTube classes as like your actual study session. Remember, this is tailored to people that they don't really enjoy reading large volumes, right? They're more of a calculation person. Some people like me. So if you're someone like that, or if you don't even have the time, you can decide to follow this step. So you're going to use these YouTube lectures like your actual study system. So you're not just watching these YouTube lectures passively, you're watching it actively. As you watch, you jot down, you take notes, like you follow attentively. If someone asks a question, you're taking note of the question that's being asked in the class, because of, in this case, it's not a live session, so you'll not be able to ask your own questions. So but if you want to join their live session, I think there's a way you can link up with them through their YouTube channel and be able to access their live classes. But then again, if that's not accessible to you, you can always watch their YouTube videos. Then step 2, after each lecture, you go to the chapter that was being taught and go through the outline of that chapter and take notes of if everything in that outline has been covered during the class, right? You know, at the beginning of every chapter, there is what you're supposed to know or what you're supposed to understand at the end of the chapter. So now, based on your jottings and everything that you've learned from that YouTube lecture, you're going to compare notes with what is actually in that chapter with the outline. If everything in the outline is what you learned from that video, that's good. Then if there's any section that is missing, let's say for example you notice that, oh, they didn't cover this in the class, then you go to that section of the chapter and actually study it and know what is there, right? And then you take notes of that part that was not taught in class but it's in the section of that chapter, and then you take notes in your jotter. So if you're doing this, you must have a book set aside for your study of advanced auditing assurance. I'm going to treat these YouTube lectures like your actual study. So even if the lecturer did not teach you, you have notes for it and you've read it, so it's in your jotter, so you can easily go back to it and revise when it is time. So this way you're able to cover everything as it relates to that chapter. Now step 3, which is one of my most important and innovative steps: Google Notebook LMs. So this is a tool that changed everything for me, and I'm also going to show you how to use it at the end of this video, so please stay with me. The Google Notebook LMs is a free AI tool by Google. What this tool does is that you upload a chapter from your study pack as a PDF, and then it can convert this chapter into a podcast, like an actual podcast conversation with two individuals talking, right? And this podcast is not in a boring sense like, oh, they are teaching you something. They are going to talk about the subject like it's an actual interesting matter that needs to be discussed. I don't know if you get how amazing this is. Like, if you're someone that loves to gist or that loves to listen to podcasts, imagine your books talking to you like a gist, basically. So this tool helps you turn what you have to study into a podcast. You can even change it into a video overview. You can even use this tool to create flashcards and quiz. I'm just going to give you an overview of it right now, but at the end of this video I will actually show you how this works. Now, this is not a paid advertisement at all. This is just a tool that greatly changed my reading style, and I'm very happy to share this with anybody. And the best thing about this tool is that it's free and it will change your reading game, I promise. Now, here's how I use it strategically. After watching a YouTube video or YouTube class on a particular chapter, and I've cross-checked it with the outline of this chapter and know that, okay, these are everything I'm supposed to cover, and I've actually covered it, I would upload this chapter into this Google Notebook LM to generate a podcast. And then when I'm less opportune to read, let's say at work or at school, you can put on your earbuds and listen to this chapter. It's like a whole conversation going on in your head, and because of these things are already familiar, you've already learned it the previous day, so it's fresh in your head. When you're commuting, during lunch break, or just before bed, you can just put in your earbuds and listen to this podcast. So the podcast is just reinforcing what you've already learned. It's like having a conversation in your head of what you already know, and it works, trust me. And the 4th step is practice questions from day one. I cannot emphasize this enough. Biggest mistakes ICAN students make, not just in auditing but across all papers, is that they spend all time reading and leaving questions until the last minute. In auditing, this is especially dangerous because auditing questions are not so straightforward. The question might touch different standards, different ISAs at once, and if you've never seen questions like that before, the exam hall is not a place for you to figure out. So as you go through each chapter, you're already getting exposed to how questions from the chapter look like. Beyond that, get your ICAN past questions and map out the questions by topic. There usually this resource that I see rotating where they have aligned each topic and the years and the questions in which I can ask those topics. So that is an essential tool for studying. So once you read a particular chapter, you now go through that resource and say, oh, these are all the questions that I can have asked this year, this date, this year, this number. So you go through all those diets and try to solve the questions and read the answers. You must not know how to answer it all at first. The main point is that you are seeing the question and seeing how ICAN is actually answering it in the answer page. Alright, this is everything I wish I had known before I wrote the Advanced Auditing and Assurance the first time. 4-step system, which was video lectures, the outline cross-check, the AI reading and retention tool, and the use of past questions. If you're writing the Advanced Auditing and Assurance this May, follow this system and I promise you'll be in a better position than I was the first time. Stay with me because I promised you a step-by-step demo of the Google Notebook LM AI tool. Let me show you how to set it up right now.
The first one that comes out, the AI research tool on Thinking Partner. So we're going to open it. So this is not just a research tool, it's also a study to understand anything. We're going to click on create a new notebook. So now we're going to upload the chapter 1 cutout that we have previously cut out for this purpose, and then give it time for it to load. Now that it has loaded, you can see fundamental concepts and framework of the audit assurance. This was the chapter 1 of the audit assurance loaded, which is the AAA chapter 1. So this is a summary of everything, right? So when we open here, you can click on flashcards to get flashcards. You can click on quiz to get quiz. You can click on audio overview to get an audio overview. So let us customize. So after the audio overview is what gives you the podcast, so you can customize it to what you want. So if you want a deep dive, you want something brief, you want a critique. So I think I've done a brief before. So let's click on deep dive, short, and beginner focus. Yeah, with practical examples. So we click on generate. Now we can test out these flashcards that we've done. So in auditing, the ability of the practitioner to carry out work without being influenced by the director is known as independence. So independence, if you wanted to explain, you can explain. So we can also click on quiz. So the analytical will ignore the statement of Nigerian companies. It assets worth 50 million naira. The concept is being applied. What concept is being applied here? Materiality. So now it's done processing the audio overview, so we can listen to it.
Principles of financial watchdogs to understand what.
So this is
the brief on the fundamentals of auditing and assurance.
We chose it to be very brief. It did a 1 minute, a 2 minutes video, right? But next time, if you chose a detailed overview, you can get to 15 minutes, depending on what we customize. So let's listen to this.
We're unpacking the principles of financial watchdogs to understand why external audits exist and how they actually protect everyday investors. First, it all starts with stewardship and agency. Because shareholders own a company but rarely manage it day-to-day, they entrust their money to directors. That's stewardship, making those directors their agents. It's kind of like hiring a property manager. You absolutely need an independent party to verify their reporting accurately.
So that is it for how to use the workbook LMs. I hope I'm able to guide you and give you a proper overview on how this can change your learning and study style. See you next week. If you're new here, please ensure you're subscribed and stay tuned to our next video next week. Thanks for watching.